Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susan McGuire, Director of Professional Development at ACCE. I'm happy to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar. Today, Jennifer Chittenden of the Des Moines Downtown Chamber and Jonathan Packer of the Austin Chamber will share how they evaluated and selected new customer relations management software, overcame technical and staffing challenges, and launched new systems that have helped their teams increase membership sales, promote member engagement, and improve customer service. So before I turn the program over to our presenters, I just have a few housekeeping notes. First, attendees are in listen-only mode during the webinar to avoid background noise. And second, after the presentations, we'll have time for questions. You can ask the questions using the question function of the webinar on the webinar panel. The question box is on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Just open it up. Type in your question, send it, and I will read the question to our panel. If we run out of time and don't get to your question, or you have a question that you prefer to discuss with one of our presenters individually offline, feel free to contact them after the webinar. Their contact information will be included on the last slide of the presentation. And if you have typed in a question that we haven't gotten to, we can also get back in touch with you afterwards to answer it. The webinar presentation slides are uploaded to the webinar panel, so just find the box titled Handout and click them to download them. We will also post these slides along with the webinar recording if you would prefer not to download them during the presentation. And finally, this webinar is being recorded and it will be up on the ACCE website on the ACC University webinar page no later than Monday, December 16th. So with that, I will introduce our presenters today. Jennifer Chittenden is the Executive Director for the Des Moines Downtown Chamber of Commerce, which serves to connect and strengthen the core of the Des Moines metro area through customized programs built for member feedback and active volunteer engagement. In 2018, the Des Moines Downtown Chamber was a proud ACCE Chamber of the Year award winner. Jennifer and her husband, Aaron, have two children, Dante and Alexandria. Jennifer and her son are proud Taekwondo black belts. Jonathan Packer is Senior Vice President of Customer Experience at the Austin Chamber of Commerce, where he leads digital initiatives, marketing and communication, membership strategy, and customer success. When he isn't working, you'll find Jonathan shooting hoops with his kids and spending as much time as possible in Southeast Asia. So thank you so much, Jennifer and Jonathan, for joining us today. And with that, I will pass the program over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Susan. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk from the perspective of being a very small chamber. Just for reference, for those who are listening in on the webinar, the Downtown Chamber was established in 2008. So we're just 11 years old as an organization, and we've gone from 0 to now over 400 members in that short amount of time. So my part of the presentation this morning, I'm going to be talking about how we launched into our very first customer management system, the CRM, the choices, the challenges, and the rewards of that process. So listen along, and hopefully if you are in that boat, you'll also be able to learn from us as well, because it was not really a smooth process for us. And that's because we didn't really follow the advice of our consultant or the company that we worked with. We kind of did it our own way. So this webinar is going to be a little bit of lessons learned and hopefully help prevent you, if you're starting off on this journey, from falling into some of those same situations that we did, that we thought might be easier, but in the long run ended up being harder for us. Ultimately, by the end, I hope that I'm able to make the case for why CRMs are important for all chambers of any size to have. So we're on the chamber snapshot slide, and what I want to do is kind of give you just a quick, here's who we are today overview. We still are very small. We're in our 11th year as an organization. We have only 2 full-time staff. It's me, and then I have a vice president of programs that manages our events and many of our administrative functions. We have a 16-member board of directors, 5 committees, plus many subcommittees and task groups. Ultimately, we have over 100 very happy, very active volunteers that are carrying out many of the activities of our chamber. So we are exceptionally busy at all times. And as you can see, we are highly dependent on that volunteer base as well. But we have very good processes and routines. And that's not really to say that our conversion to a CRM was easy, because it's not. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is what we looked like prior to 2017. We started our conversion in 2017. And so you're going to see on the left side of the screen, we used Excel for our member directory to keep all that data. We had a simple Excel file, and on the right side of the screen, you're going to see our board dashboard that we put together. And at that time, when we were using this platform for our CRM, we were using Excel as our solo customer management system. We were not quite 300 members yet, but we were growing very steadily and very fast. For staffing at that time, we were just a little bit different. I was still full-time, but I had two part-time staff, not another full-time, so two part-timers. So even though these documents look very nice, these were very much on my plate to do all the time, and they were very time-consuming. And while inexpensive, this method really was not the most efficient method either. I see that in retrospect. At the time, I didn't know any better. I'm a fan of being frugal and saving money, and while Excel has a solid place in any organization, acting as the organization's CRM system really is not a good use, and here's why. So I was actually very good at Excel. I had a lot of training earlier in my career, and I could do a lot of the functions very easily and very quickly. But when it came to having staff, my part-time staff at that time were very young. They actually did not know Excel, and they didn't use it regularly as a result. And also, when they did use it, they were often wasting their time on it because they weren't using the time-saving features, simply because they didn't know those features existed. So for example, you can remove duplicates from an Excel worksheet with one click of a button. But they were spending hours doing this simply because they didn't know that. And when you add that up, it's more than just the time. That becomes very expensive when you're paying part-time individuals to do that. Additionally, you can't keep the data in just one worksheet. So we actually had dozens of different documents that we were constantly opening and editing and saving and recording committee rosters, event attendance, bills paid. We had a worksheet for just about every function. And this method really is very time consuming. And it's also exceptionally difficult to train new people, because for them to remember what is stored where, which document to open, how to do it, that took a lot of time too, just in training them to be able to do that. And even then retraining, because when you have so many documents, it's not easy to remember all of that. And finally, there's a lot of risk in using this as your CRM, because unlike using like a Google Doc nowadays, at that time that really wasn't the popular method for us. If somebody missorted that member roster, you're looking at hours to fix and correct that information, if you can even fix and correct it. It's just very easy for the information to get mixed up unintentionally. So you can really avoid a lot of these pitfalls by having a CRM. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So naturally, as a small chamber, we're also on a very limited budget. We needed to make a case for why we needed to invest in a CRM. And many systems can be very budget friendly, but again, when you're a small organization, sometimes even the least expensive systems can seem like a big undertaking for us. And that's where we were at that time too, is how do we make the case to our board of directors that moving to a system like this is what we absolutely needed to do to be a well-run organization. So here's just a few cases that you can take to your leadership if you're in that same boat to get that buy-in. First of all, it will streamline your processes. All the employees can find what they need in one place. That's important. The browser-based features that come with most of these systems today are very modern, and they make sense, and they're fairly intuitive. And so again, that'll cut down on your time training on the system for somebody, because they can usually figure it out on their own or use some of the built-in resources and how-tos that come with the system. You also, I don't want to say that you're going to save time by investing in a CRM, but what you will do is you will be more productive with the time that you have available by having a CRM, and you can multiply your ability to connect and communicate with your members and the public at large. So saying that, a lot of the ways that you can do that, your tasking communications can be done in advance, and automated. It could be those ticklers to remind you to follow up on prospects. It could be some of the built-in templates for common emails that you're sending, like your invoices do. And a lot of times you can send those with links. So for your members, it's really easy for them to click on and pay their bills. Now you're saving time and following up on them paying bills. One template that we really love in the communications section of our CRM is a new member welcome email. The system will find those who've been entered as new members and automatically send a welcome email that we've built in that has resources and links and everything to get them started. And it's nice because it's consistent and it's reliable and it's something we don't have to think about. It's a piece of the process that can happen without a lot of oversight. You're also going to find that whatever data you need, it's there. You have preset queries that are really fast and simple, and in looking around your system, you're probably going to discover reports that you didn't even realize you needed until you open it. You're like, wow, that's a great report to have. This tells me a lot of the story that I need to communicate. And then if you can't find what you need, just about every system has the ability to customize queries. So you can answer just about any question comes at you because all that data is in one place and can be pulled with different functionalities. So that's another reason to have it as well, is to be able to make smart decisions with really good data. And then, of course, the CRM is going to be more secure and more reliable. Your data is already there, and it's in a system that there's going to be an audit trail. If something is odd or out of place, you're going to be able to find out who made that change, what happened, when did it happen, and usually you can go back and you can fix that if you need to, or at least get the story that you need. So that's important. You don't have that on the other end of it. If you lose your laptop or it dies, your data in most of these systems are going to be cloud-based. So again, your data is still there, even though your device might not be functional. I actually had that happen the day of a board meeting. And of course, it's one of those weeks when I didn't send everything out in advance by email and I didn't print it in advance. And that was a really, really tough day. So don't let that happen to you. A CRM can really help prevent some of that from happening. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So let's say you have approval now. You're about to invest in begin with your new CRM. There is a planning piece of this, and it's really important that you don't overlook the planning part of it. Implementation is all the fun stuff, but take your time for the planning and do it right. So here's just a few tips that, again, I wish that we'd had in advance. And the first and foremost of that is prioritize your time for the planning. That was an easy part for us to skip. We thought we kind of knew what we were getting into. We thought we kind of knew what we wanted, and we were trying to fit it into our day-to-day activities. And you're not going to be thinking holistically as an organization's leader about the project if you're focused on just the outer layers of that CRM. The risk in doing that is that you're going to miss out on ways to customize the system to your chamber. I know we did. There are so many settings that can be adjusted to make it work in your style, the way that you communicate with your members, the way that your staff works. But if you are flying through that, you're going to end up with a more generic product. And you're going to find yourself constantly trying to make adjustments after the implementation. And it is so much harder to go backwards and make it happen than to plan for it ahead of time and make it happen. And it takes a lot more time, and it does take more money to do it that way too. So make time, prioritize time, shift your activities, whatever you have to do to really focus on this and get it right before you even start. I cannot stress that enough. The other part of that is assigning a lead person. It might be you. Maybe if you can't do it, you have a dedicated volunteer or a dedicated person on the staff. But somebody needs to be completely focused on this and can pay attention to it in the way that it needs to be done. One of the things that we did, and again, lesson learned, is we spread out the information, having different people on our team be responsible for learning about different parts. And the hard lesson in that is that everybody learns differently and retains differently. And we found that one person's retention was unfortunately so poor, we basically had to start over from scratch in that particular area. Again, that takes a lot of time. It's a lot of frustration. So have one person really responsible for this project and making sure that is being carried through in the way it should. And of course, notify your members. Your members need to know what's going on. Let them know in advance. You're going to be a little absent. You're going to be a little focused on this. You might be shifting some things around because you're going to be implementing something wonderful that they will benefit from later on. But let them know what you're up to. For example, they might see something new or odd come across their desk. If you've kind of warned them that you're doing an implementation, they might look the other way. We actually accidentally mass emailed our entire database twice during the implementation piece of that, but thankfully most, not all, most members were pretty forgiving of that and just kind of dismissed it as, oh, they're putting something new in place. So just let your members know what you're doing. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the implementation, again, this is kind of what everybody thinks about is, okay, now we know what we want to do. We know how we're going to do it. Let's do it. And this is really critical here, is when you do the implementation, shift your events, shift your projects, make this the focus. Again, kind of like when you're in the planning stage, if you're trying to juggle that with your day-to-day, you're going to procrastinate and the implementation is going to get delayed and the success of it is going to be impeded as well. Do whatever you can to make sure that you're able to give this the proper focus. I can guarantee you that if you do shift a lot of these things off your plate and you are focused on this, it is going to go faster, it is going to go smoothly, and it's probably going to go more the way that you want it to go. That is a hard lesson to learn. One of the things that we did is we actually didn't do our homework. We tried to do just the basic things, but we were really busy trying to juggle this with everything else. And we're in the I'll do it later when we have more time routine. And the truth of that, and you all know this too, is you never do have more time. The longer you wait, the more complex your information is going to get. So here's an example of a hard lesson we learned. We actually did not follow our consultant's advice. We delayed entering the billing information. And instead, we did it about 9 months later when it's time for dues invoices to go out. So at that point, we still did not have time, but we had to get it done. It was a now or never thing. So it was rushed. And as a result, when we did our first batch of bills, not everything was correct. In fact, we had members commenting that our accounting department wasn't very good. And if you recall from my earlier slide, we don't have an accounting department. So that's just not really a great image that you want to have. And we've been working to overcome that. And hopefully this year our accounting department can get lots of good reviews. We've been working really hard on making sure our information is in there and that it's accurate, because that's the other part of that. Accuracy is really key. And that's part of that time investment during the implementation. It is not just you, but have multiple people go over the information again and again. The spellings, the numbers, what information is missing, are the employee counts on there, the right industries, do you have the right contacts? That's a piece of the homework we didn't really do in advance. We just assumed our information was correct going into it, and it was anything but. So we spent about the first year and a half making changes. And as we all know, members get very frustrated when information is wrong. And so make sure you're at least doing your due diligence, because members can and they will drop if you have information wrong in their online directory, and especially if that's been going on for a while and you didn't notice it. So just make sure that you're accurate, you're doing your homework, you're making time for this. And the fourth component of that, of course, is to train. And we made the mistake of putting just one person through the training, not everybody who was going to be using the system. And for a small chamber in particular, I cannot stress it enough that get your whole team trained at the same time. Again, we all learn at different times, but I got caught. I was the one who trained myself and thought I could train others. I'm not a professional trainer, and so I didn't do it well enough, and it got caught in a cycle of training and retraining constantly. And that took a lot of my time away from being with members, which is where my focus really needed to be. So make sure that you're doing the training, but also that everybody knows what tools are available to them. We actually have not run into that on our side. I learned that lesson from another chamber that had the same system. And when I was comparing some information, I learned that they were only using that system for member data and events. They had no idea that there was even a communication tool where they can customize emails and target emails to specific members. So make sure that you're aware of the tools, make sure that your staff knows where all the tools are and that you're using those tools, because you invested in this for that very reason, that you've got all these things that are going to cause more productivity, build in revenue, and make your members happier as a result. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So there's a number of benefits and results, and this is going to look different for everybody. But for us, we had our members empowered by implementing a system. They love that they can change their information on the member directory. They love the transparency of being able to access their invoices and to send those on to different departments if they need be. They love being able to get their members signed up for their staff signed up for our newsletter. They like the ability to do rather than to have to ask us to do for them. We also found that we're able to get more decisions made with better data. For example, we're able to identify pretty quickly what industries aren't in our membership and target to that. We actually had, over this last summer, we pulled a report on who are some members who used to be active who have been less active. And you can tell that just by who's signing up for what or who's logging into the member portal. There's all sorts of information. And we were able to coordinate an outreach effort to over 100 of our members during the summer via our volunteers to reach back out and make sure that they were engaged with the chamber, to find those who are maybe dropping off and use this as a retention strategy. So you've got smart data at your fingertips that you can use. We also loved the integration with other technology. We use QuickBooks for our accounting and reporting, and the ability to integrate with our QuickBooks streamlined that piece of the process for us and made that a lot quicker on our end. We like the templates. We use templates whenever we can, whether it's reminding members that they have invoices due, maybe it's to target specific events to specific industries. We have some events that are really made for people in certain industries, and we find we get better attendance when we can personalize an email that looks like it's made just for them. So templates are time-saving. They're already written for us, and we can use them again and again. And of course, revenue. There's so many ways you can build revenue into your CRM. You just have to be creative, but of course, there's some spelled out ways for you to do it too. So know what those are, and that'll help you make the case as well as when you can say, we're going to make this money back, and here's how. We've also used it to build up sponsorship in our system, and that's been a really growing point in our budget. Let's go ahead and go to that last slide. So change is hard, and I think we'll talk a little more about this later on in the webinar after Jonathan, but managing change is done with both the members and the staff. I think first and foremost, we think about the staff, but let's not also forget about our members. So the first thing, kind of going back to that planning stage, communicate with the members throughout the process and communicate a lot. They will tell you when they're tired of hearing from you, but if they're not hearing from you on the right things, then they're going to miss information or get something mixed up. So just make sure that you're getting ahead of that and letting them know what you have going on. Offer training to members. If they have the ability to access a member portal or the ability to pay bills, anything that you want them to do, just make sure that you're offering the avenue for them to learn how to do it. If we simply send out an email and say, hey, you can do this now, you're leaving it up to them to figure out the how. It's probably not going to happen. So create the opportunity for them to learn from you on how to do something. Bring them into your place of business and give them a training workshop. Go to their site, offer webinars, but make sure that you're training them on how to use it too, because that's going to save you time in the end for them to know how to utilize the system. Give them tips regularly. We usually have social media and newsletters that we can use. These are great avenues to constantly put one or two pieces of advice out there on a regular basis. Hey, did you know you could do this with your member portal? Or did you know that this is available to you now as a member of the chamber? So just make sure that you're on a frequent basis letting them know what their benefits are for your conversion to the system. And then gradually introduce them to the features. It's the same old lesson of if you put it all out there, it's too much to digest at once and they'll use nothing. So just make sure that you're balancing that out, you're rolling it out. Here's something you can do this week. Let me tell you about this next week. And then you keep going and you build upon that and you're going to find a better rate of adoption by the members. For the staff side, it's important to remind yourself that not everybody is going to love the system and not everybody's going to understand it. Change is hard, and when you've been stuck doing something the same way for years, or something might have been done in an easier way before, just remind them the why you're doing what you're doing and how it's better for the members, how it's better for you in the long run. That's just going to be a constant, and some people will never come around to it, but as the leader, always remind them, this is a good change. This is a good change because. Involve them in the implementation if you can. Again, you still want to have that point person, but if you can give them a piece of ownership or involve them in making a decision, they're going to have more buy-in for that system from the get-go too. They're going to feel like they had a part in it. Leverage your training resources. Again, there's a lot of resources that usually come with the systems, whether it's with the company itself and the individuals or it's online how-tos and webinars. Utilize those training resources, leverage them, and refresh often. Just because you learn something once, don't assume it sticks. Maybe bring those back in your staff meetings or on a monthly or even weekly basis of how to do something. Be patient though, because again, everybody learns at different rates. My staff changed from young, this is their first career, to later on as we were rolling into the system, both my part-time staff were semi-retired individuals, and there was a completely different rate of learning when it came to technology. So patience is sometimes very key because everybody's going to come at it a little differently and at a different rate. And use your tools. Again, know what's available to you and really use it. At least try to use it. Even if you don't love it later, experiment, see if it works, because I think you're going to find that most things that are built into these systems really are going to be an advantage for you and your members. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan for the next part.
Hi, everybody. I am really grateful that Jennifer laid out a lot of the foundations on process, working with people, and I can tell you that in our project, we faced a lot of the similar things. So whatever size your organization is, I think the things Jennifer shared apply. And so what I'd like to do is talk about our project. It's been a full-fledged digital transformation project. And I am going to zoom in on the CRM because I want to add some tangible things for you to take with you if you may be about to embark on a project or even midway through. But I also want to speak to maybe the broader subject and why this is important. If you're looking to sell a project to your board or to your boss, hopefully I can give you some tips there as well. So a little bit about the Austin Chamber. The chamber is, we're a metro chamber. We have, depending on the barometric pressure, between 40 and 45 staff. Within the chamber, like a lot of larger chambers, we have since the 1800s, Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce. We also have our Economic Development Initiative, and we have a 501c3 to serve other purposes. So all in all, depending on what's going on that year, we're around a $10 million organization. Additional to that, we have tons of committees, tons of events, tons of participation, and participation where literally everybody that works here is working with our customers, and so that data is very important. I do want to say, before I get into our challenge, that I've worked at a 12-employee Chamber of Commerce. I've worked at a 1-employee Economic Development Corporation. So I do want to reinforce that I think a lot of these lessons apply across different sizes. So at the end of the day, though, where we found ourselves about 2 years ago is we were blocked. The organization, we would have meetings with staff and we would discuss maybe what's a marketing idea we have to improve lead generation, or how can we keep data more up to date using better task management, or any other idea. We found that good ideas were being blocked by the technology we were using. We found that we were held back by using all-in-one systems instead of best in class. So we hired a consultant to draft a digital transformation plan. And next slide, please. This is the gist of the plan. But really, I like to think of it a little simpler in that it's a revenue plan through improved collaboration and investments in technology. So it's not here's how we need to buy computers because we need to keep our technology up to date. The goal of our digital transformation plan was revenue. And the primary methods with which to get to that goal was investments in collaboration and also technology. So I want to share with you a couple of observations of our digital transformation plan offline. I'm happy to share more information about that. But issue one that our plan called out, and hopefully you'll start to see that this is not this doesn't look like a CRM plan. This is observations about the company and how we run. But we had silos, and I don't even mean silos in a way to castigate my coworkers. I mean that we're a broad organization that does a lot of really good work, and a lot of people work very hard and in very meaningful ways with our customers. But because of those silos, we would be using narrow terminology, which drove narrow engagement. So membership would use membership, programs would use sponsorship, our economic development org would use investments. And so we were talking with the same customers in very limited ways and driving narrow engagement in redundancy to each other. The second observation the plan had was that being transactional, so all of those groups focusing on their priority in a non-cohesive way, undermines member experience, which I think we can all understand that. One thing I can say is that this was a particularly acute challenge here, and we felt like technology was not helping us with the solution. But finally, and we've talked about this as chambers for a long time, but one size fits all fits nobody. So these are observations that were really at the heart of the plan. These were, this was the things we were trying to fix, and technology was a way to get there to enable different human approaches. So we had a digital roadmap in our plan as well that laid out and you'll see this here, this is a pyramid, and the idea is that logically you start at the foundation with the financial system, that you move on to customer relationship management, and so this was the kind of the pathway the consultant prescribed for us. The problem was that we already had about half of these systems. So next slide, please. We already had an investment in a financial system. We were fortunate to have that. We moved to a fully functioning ERP, but we didn't feel like we had a modern CRM that would drive performance. And as I get into CRM more, I do believe that CRM is a very broad category of tools. We felt like our website, which is where our customers interact with us, was not enabling growth, and we felt like we were using a non-modern marketing system. We did already invest in modern project management and internal communications tools. Our consultant said, "Good job, but maybe you should have waited to do these more foundational projects first." But this was the scope of our digital transformation plan from a technology perspective. One of the things Jennifer mentioned was having someone to lead the project, and we were fortunate that our board elected to invest reserve funds in paying off our technical debt and implementing these systems. And I was moved into a role where I was the point person to manage the project. So that began for us in January of 2018. And so my role for the 2 years after that was to implement our digital plan, both in terms of technology and in team. So what I want to talk about now is some of the things we use and some tips I can have on how to pick a CRM. What I don't want to be is prescriptive. So we ended up using Salesforce as our CRM, but in a different situation, I would have maybe made a different decision. And I certainly don't think that just because we use Salesforce, that's the magic solution for everybody. But hopefully I can show you some of the process we use and that to make that decision. So the first tip on how to pick a CRM is that you have to have a clear definition. Clear definition avoids creep. Clear definition allows you to set metrics that you can track to make sure that you are accountable to your board and organization. And for us, we had I'll show you the grid we used, next slide, to define what our clear definition was. So two of these things are very process-oriented goals. Two are project-based goals, and another two are more macro organizational, a little more subjective goals. But in meeting with our leadership team, and we also formed a committee of our members who had gone through a digital project like this. So if you have that ability, I would definitely leverage them as well. But these are our two goals, and so our 6 goals. And so let me kind of go through each one of them. From an operational efficiency perspective, we had a lot of redundancy redundancy is the wrong word. We had a lot of tasks that were not efficient. So, how does a sale go to accounting to create an invoice? How does anything happen? And we felt like there was a great need for us to increase our efficiency so that people were doing less manual work. The other thing we found is that because the tools were not easy to use, and we did take a survey of our team on how they felt about our existing tools. We felt like anything we tried to do to improve data integrity fell flat because of the kind of the onerous process that it took to keep things up to date. And then for us, these retention marketing and funnel development, these are project-based goals, but what we wanted to do was, as we were rolling out the new tool, we wanted to be able to introduce some marketing automation to drive retention outcomes. I firmly believe that retention is a marketing challenge. And so we said, well, let's look at these tools to make sure we can do this project soon to avoid waiting until the end of the project. And the same thing with funnel development. Every time we would ask a question like how many leads came in June, it was a research project. So we wanted to make sure that our tools could support modern funnel development for our sales teams. And then the last two, the more subjective ones, customer experience and product transformation. This was frankly just me saying, do I feel like we're going to have the toolkit we need to drive dramatic improvements in our customer experience? And do I feel like we have the toolkit that we need to change what we sell, how we sell it, and really transform Chamber as a product? So those are a little bit abstract, but I felt were very important as this was an aspirational project. So what we did is we literally, we evaluated several software systems. We evaluated all-in-one systems. We evaluated all-in-one systems built on top of Salesforce. We evaluated different stacks of tools we could put together to see how they fit together. And at the end of the day, what we wanted to say that all of these were green. So we took this decision matrix, and in each scenario, we applied a red, yellow, green to the box. And then at the end of the day, in the next slide, please, we had where we felt like we had checked every box with the approach that we were trying to go with. So I think this is a really simple way, and I could have shown you a red, yellow, and green grid here, but this was I felt a really important project to kind of visualize what we were trying to do and to make sure the decision stood up to the goals we had and the clear definition we had set. The second advice I'd give on how to pick a CRM is that once you have set those clear goals, don't compromise. So it's easy to compromise on things that may be opportunities that pop up in the middle of the project. But if your goal is to improve data integrity, don't make decisions that compromise. Stick firm to those priorities that you set, and you'll find the project moves a lot quicker and with a lot more accuracy to the original need. The third, how to pick a CRM advice I'd have, and this, not every organization, I know that Jennifer mentioned that they bootstrapped it as a staff working with the provider of technology. We felt like for us that we had to pick a consultant to guide the project. And as we were going through the different potential CRMs we were going to pick, we had to evaluate whether we had a consultant solution lined up to make the project successful. And so if you're going to work with consultants, I have a couple of tips for you. When we first talked to Salesforce, they had a consultant kind of ready to suggest, and that's not the one we ended up picking. I like this image because this is kind of what our first consultants meeting looked like to me in hindsight. We weren't prepared, and a lot of Jennifer's points about preparing ahead of time. Given how expensive consultants are, anything you can do ahead of time to be organized and to anticipate and to prevent yourself from oversharing will really keep the project focused and on budget. So one mistake we made was we relied on our consultants too much, in my opinion, to define our business practices. I think we kind of saw ourselves as an old-fashioned institution, and we were hiring consultants that were going to modernize the way we do simple tasks. And they really just wanted us to tell them how our business ran so that they could architect the system. And so we spent a lot of money going back and forth, where if we were a little more organized ahead of time, if we were a little more shrewd in what we shared with the consultants, we would have saved a lot of money, in my opinion. So I'm happy to talk to anybody who is in the process of picking consultants. I think it's very important. And for us, I felt like it was necessary. But you got to do it right. The fourth advice I'd have for picking a CRM, and I think this is really important, especially for us using board reserves to fund this project, is that you can't sacrifice perfect for good. Next slide, please. We had a very aggressive timeline for this project. We wanted to have a new CRM up and running in Q2, so within 6 months of the year. And as everybody knows, if you're going from an all-in-one system to a stack, and I don't want to necessarily describe the entire stack that we had to build, but most all-in-one systems handle events management, so we had to have a solution for that. What we ended up doing is we ended up packing in the entire project in that first half of the year, other than the website. So let's go to the next slide. So this is what we launched on June 1st, 2018. So this is 5 months of implementation, and to the point of not sacrificing perfect for good, we at the meeting to decide whether we were launching the following Monday, everybody in the room, other than me, wanted to wait. There was anxiety. There was a few things that were important but not critical, in my opinion, that were, let's get that done. What I felt like is we would have been in a terminal loop of work, and we could have, and y'all know how the summer is, right? Your time tends to disappear. So I felt like if we didn't launch on 6/1, we might as well just wait until the end of the year to launch. So if you're at that point in your project where you feel like you've got the core done and you're wanting it to be perfect, I'd urge you to consider whether you're going to make an improvement by just pulling the Band-Aid and moving forward. And for us, that's what I felt like we had to do to maintain both internal and board credibility with the project. Not everybody knows the details. Not everybody has empathy for why this specific thing is taking so long. And so that was really important for us to make demonstrable progress and get systems in place as quickly as possible. So by June 1st of 2018, we had a new CRM that was integrated with our financial system. We also had to integrate several other tools to make the system work the way we wanted to, like DocuSign and our events platform. We had a new marketing platform. Once again, I don't want to be prescriptive, but we ended up going up with HubSpot. We had to manage an integration with Salesforce. We had a new events platform that's very important for chambers, and we had to build a custom membership portal that was integrated with Salesforce. For any of you considering Salesforce does have a product called Salesforce Communities that can create that customer portal. We evaluated that, and we decided to go with a custom project because of the comfort I had with a developer and a system. That might have been a unique choice that we were able to make because of my skill set, but I'm happy to talk about that with anybody as well. The last how to pick a CRM I'd like to give you is to take change management seriously. Jennifer had a lot of really good points about the way people learn. Some people, when you show them something, they're like, wait, hold on. I want you to explain how it works to me. And some people, when you explain it, they're like, your explanation's not working. Please show it to me. Some people bounce to like, well, what happens when this, then this, then this, and this happens? And some people just go way, way parallel to something that you didn't even see as a question coming. I think for us, we had very little outright hostility to change on our team. And I'm very grateful for that, but that does not mean it was easy. So don't fool yourself. If you have a team that's 100% on board, don't assume it's going to be easy. If you have a team you feel like is very technically competent, maybe technically savvy, don't assume that means it's going to be easy. It was hard. One of the things we did is we didn't, as a 43 employees is what we had when we launched, that we didn't launch with everybody. We launched with the sales team first and then went to marketing and then eventually made it across the entire organization. So you can roll out in steps, which will make change management a little more discreet. But where are we now? So we're 18 months after we launched our CRM, and remember, this was our kind of matrix for making that decision. This is my opinion on how close to the mark we are, and I show this because you can see it's mostly 4s and 3s out of 5 that I kind of self-graded. That this is a long project. When you're investing in a new CRM, you're investing in your organization's ability to do things that you can't do today. And you've got to manage the implementation of technology. You've got to manage getting the teams where they need to be to use it. You've got to define the business process. You've got to give if you're talking about retention, we all know that takes at least a year to start seeing the fruits of your labor. So don't expect to launch a CRM, especially for larger chambers, and have your wildest dreams come true very quickly after rolling out. We're still doing a lot of stabilization projects where I've joked with my boss that there's things that he doesn't want to know what's actually going on that I'm trying to fix still. But this is about change. This is about changing the way we work as a company, and it's a process and it takes time. So the last thing I'd like to say is that for me, team is everything. One of the things that we did in parallel to the technology project, going back to some of the earlier slides about kind of the learnings of our digital transformation plan, we completely realigned our membership and marketing communications teams as a part of this project. So as we implemented technology, we began hiring different skill sets. That is something that I'm grateful for, being in Austin, that we have a strong technology economy here. And so we started kind of thinking like, well, what are some skill sets that we need that we don't feel like we have today? Or what are some backgrounds that we don't typically hire from that might bring some experiences that no one here working with us has? So we hired several new functional roles as a part of this, and I would love to talk to anybody that is saying, we have this technology project, but we're not sure we have the team today that we're going to need in the future to fully leverage it. I think that's really important, and that applies to whether you're a one-person chamber or all the way to some of our larger metro chambers. So I know, Jennifer mentioned that I was going to finish on this thought. And Jennifer, did you have anything additional to kind of input on the importance of team and managing a project like this?
Just making sure that you have the buy-in. It kind of goes back to that point of make sure they understand the why of what we're doing this. Because again, change is so hard, and we just have to remind them when they're frustrated one day, we're doing this because we can create faster reports. We're doing this because members are going to be calling you less for member directory changes. I mean, just that constant, this is a good change. You just have to always be the optimist. I would add that.
Yeah, it's so important. Chambers and employees that work at chambers can be a very entrepreneurial bunch. Our goal throughout this has been to try to be as entrepreneurial as possible, but try to be as proactive as possible and to avoid being reactive. And getting the right people on board is so important.
Okay, well, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Jennifer, for your presentations. Such great information from different perspectives, but lots of commonality too. Folks, if you have any questions, we have a few minutes for them. Again, just go ahead, open up the question box, type in your question, and we'll just read them out to Jennifer and Jonathan. And if we don't get to them, we'll contact you, or as mentioned, go ahead and contact them directly. So let me see here. I believe this may be for Jennifer. Thank you so much for the information. Building on how to build the case for a new CRM, can you provide some detail around efforts, resources required, cost, number of people dedicated to the process, implementation time? Furthermore, I heard some mention that the functionalities have revenue upside too. Can you provide any more detail there?
Yeah, those are really great. Cost, it's going to vary from system to system. So I think the first thing is to come up with a budget in your mind of what you think you can afford, because I have found that negotiating is a possibility. So just come in with what you think you can do and start from that from a budget standpoint. It is going to be an investment, at least several $1,000s. And when you're breaking that out, you kind of want to look that back into, with the revenue side of it, where are the opportunities to build in the revenue? For us, it was the ability we can add features into our directory that we can charge for. We can add, we integrated with a website portion, so we can offer banner ads. Also just the efficiencies too of getting paid in a timely manner, getting invoices out to everybody who need invoices, doing it in manners that wasn't just a hard copy, but we could do electronic invoices. We found from a dues retention standpoint that was a huge part of the revenue piece of it for us. And then sponsorship opportunities. Again, what can they sponsor on our website? What can they sponsor within the directory? Those are all pieces that we looked at with a financial perspective before we jumped into it. Number of people. For us, we did it with 1 full-time and 2 part-time, plus I brought in 2 volunteers to help. So it's nice if you have a larger team. If you could really focus, I'd say 3 people specifically on it would be awesome. But you do what you can with what you have.
Okay. And Jennifer, a couple questions on which CRM you ended up choosing.
Yeah, so funny story about that. We actually were in an area with a lot of chambers, and Chamber Master is pretty popular locally. So we were inclined to go that direction just because it was so common. But when it came down to the choices, we ended up selecting WebLink because there was an integration to QuickBooks feature. And as a small chamber, we wanted an AR system that could integrate and make that process simple on our end from an administrative standpoint. So that was really kind of the point of decision to go with, I guess it's called Atlas now, but at the time it was called WebLink.
Okay. Jonathan, question, if you could explain what funnel development means.
Yeah, so, picture a funnel with the opening at the top and the point at the bottom. And the point at the bottom is somebody joining your chamber or somebody registering for an event or any other kind of revenue goal you have. And so anytime we wanted to look at our funnel, or some people call it pipeline, every time we wanted to look at it, it seemed like it was a week-long research project. And so for me, I needed better data, not just not just how many leads do we have, but today I can tell you what pages and how long people were spending on our website right when the lead comes into our team. So that's also an operational improvement, because what we used to do is we have somebody sitting there waiting for an email for a lead to come in. They'd forward to somebody, and then it was kind of all visibility stopped until that company may or maybe didn't join the chamber. And so today, just being able to adopt modern funnel development practices, so at any point in time in the day, I can look at a chart that says how many leads do we have now at this stage, how many do we have at that stage, and how many have closed in the last week. I know a lot of the all-in-one systems that are prevalent in this industry can technically do some of those things. What I found is that they're onerous enough that your sales team or your marketing team might not use them. And so we wanted to make sure we were using products that were easy to use and that got data in the system we'd never had before to make quick decisions, but to also be able to make management decisions to instead of waiting a year to decide whether a marketing campaign worked, being able to evaluate it in close to real time was really important for us.
Okay. Let me see. Jonathan, how did you find the right consultant to help you with the project?
Well, that question assumes that I found the right consultant. And I'll tell you that on probably half of the things, I feel like we found the right consultant. On the other half, I feel like we might have made a mistake. And so certainly if I ever end up in this large of a CRM project again, a lot of the lessons that I shared about picking a consultant, I'd be reminding myself of. We thought we would hire a consultant with background in like the startup high-tech industry, and we would learn so much. And what we found is we had to explain so much about the way chambers work. And Jennifer mentioned sending accidental emails to the entire membership base. My nightmare that I have is our consultants decided to import all of our membership renewals into Salesforce without telling us, and everything was wrong. And I spent weeks fixing it before we launched. And so, on a CRM project, if one thing would have gotten me fired, it's invoicing less than we were supposed to when the project was over. And so that still gives me nightmares. So I stand by why we made the decision to pick the consultant we did, but in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have gone with the one we picked. And so it's a learning process.
Okay. One other question we had was how to get in touch with our presenters. And here you go. Here is their contact information. If you want to ask questions specifically, if we didn't get to your question, go ahead and contact them, or if you've typed it in, we will get in touch with you. But feel free to get in touch with Jennifer or Jonathan if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you to both of you for your wonderful presentations and giving all of us the benefit of the learning and the lessons learned and mistakes and high points and low points that you experienced. That is very generous, and we really appreciate you sharing all of that information. So folks, just a reminder, the webinar will be posted, the webinar recording will be posted no later than Monday the 16th. And you can find that on our webinar page, which you can find on www.acce.org. Click on Professional Development, hover over ACC University Online, and click on Webinars. It'll be right there, and the slides will be there as well. And this is our last ACCE webinar of 2019. We are finalizing our Winter-Spring 2020 schedule. That will be up on our event page by the first of the year. So we're excited about what we're planning, so please check it out, and we really look forward to sharing time and learning with you all in the new year. So thank you again to our panelists for taking the time to present today's webinar. Thanks to you for all of your participation and interest. All of us at ACCE wish you and yours a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. And we will see you in 2020 on our next ACC webinar. Bye-bye.